Okay, so welcome to part 2 of the chat application of the real-time chat app with Django. So this is part 2. So right here, I want to start working on being able to send each other messages instant. So I want to be able to send my friends message, and I also want to be able to receive messages from my friends instant. So that's what I want to work on right now. So now we're going to create a form instant. So now I'm going to simply create a new file in the app folder called forms.py. Before I do that, I need to create a model first. Sorry, I need to create a model class for our messages. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to call this class. So I'm going to create a new model. I'm going to call this chat message. So this is going to be this per message. Well, this is going to be equal to models.model. So before you start watching part 2, before you come down to part 2, make sure you've watched part 1 so you can follow along, so you don't get confused. Understand? So models. So right now I'm going to list out the attributes or the fields for this model. So I'll simply say for the first one, I'm going to say body. This is going to be the actual message you want to send. This is going to be the actual message we are trying to send or we are trying to receive. So I'm going to simply say body should be equal to models dot text field. Dot text field. Correct. So after we've done this now, I also want to create a new another attribute. So I'm going to call this is going to be the sender. So I'm going to simply say going to be equal to. So I'm going to call this sender. I'm going to call this MHD message sender. Let's just say MHD sender. So I'm trying to avoid any form of clashing with the Django keywords. Understand? So I'm going to say MHD underscore sender should be equal to models dot foreign key. So we're going to connect this model to the profile model. So we're going to say foreign key. So we're going to simply say profile, and now we're going to say on delete should be equal to models.cascade, and now we're going to do profile on delete, and what else? You can add the related name. So related name to avoid any form of clashing. Related name, I'm going to simply say MHG. Let's just say sender instead. So now I'm going to copy this same thing for the receiver. So now let's see MHG receiver. I'm going to set this to foreign key. I'm going to connect this. It's going to be to our profile model again, and now I'm going to simply call this related name MHG receiver. So it can be whatever, you can give it whatever name you like, you understand? So I'm just calling my this. You can choose whatever name you like. So I'm going to also add an extra field now. I'm going to call this is going to be seen. So if this message has been seen, I'm going to set this to true. So if the message has been seen, I'm going to set this attribute to true. For now it's going to be false. So I'm going to say c should be equal to models dot boolean field, boolean, sorry for that, models dot boolean field. So default is going to be equal to false. Okay, false. Okay, that's done already. Okay, so now we're going to simply, so right now we're going to return the string function and say self. Okay, so now after this, now we're going to return the body. So we're going to say return self.body. So now we need to migrate these to the database. So let's do that. It says okay, let's migrate. So let's make migrations and migrate. So now, right now, let's run server. So let me be sure this is recording. So let's run server. Okay, server is running now. So now we need to register this stuff in the admin.py. So don't forget. Let's click chat message. Okay, so chat message. So that's fine now. So what I want to do now is this now. So we're going to create a form.py. So we're going to create a model form for this model we just created. So we're going to create a model form and we're going to place that form just here. We're gonna place it here. You get, so everything should show. That what you want to do next. So we are doing that right now. Okay, so that's it now. So let's create the models.py. Let's create the model form. So we're gonna create a new file called forms.py. So new file forms.py. Okay, so now I'm gonna do some. I'm gonna simply say from Django import forms and import forms and right here I'm gonna simply say from Django.forms let's import model form. So now let's create this form. So I'm gonna simply say from, let's say chat message form. Let's say chat message form. So now we're gonna simply do model form. So we are inheriting from the model form we gotten. So now right now I'm gonna say class meta. So now that's gonna be, so our model is gonna be equal to chat message, and now the fields, sorry, chat message, and now the field is just gonna be simply the body field. Understand? Fields is gonna be equal to the body field, just that body. So that's it now. So I'm gonna import chat message at the top. Now simply say from .models import chat message. So that's it now. That's fine. So right now I'm gonna import this chat message form into the views.py file. So let's do that right away. So just come to the top here and say from .forms import chat message form. So that's it. So now in the detail view, because the chat message form is gonna be in the detail view, so now simply come down here and simply say, let's say form should be equal to chat message. So now let's pass this in to the context. Nice. So it's now in the context now. That's nice. Okay, so the next, so now I'm gonna send this to the detail page, to the detail.html. So now just here at the bottom we should have a place, you can see where we have this input field. So now I'm gonna simply pass in that form we have there. So let's do that right now. So I'm gonna simply do this form. So now let's see. Oh, it's really ugly, super ugly. So now what to do is I want to make this look good instead. So I want to make this look beautiful. So now let's do that right now. So let's do that right now. As you can see, this form is so ugly and we don't need this label on top. So now we want to style this form and remove this label. So to remove this label now, simply just come down here. Okay, before we do that now, so let's just go and style the form first. So go down to the forms.py file and then just come down on top of the on top of class meta. So now we're going to pick up that attribute called body. Understand? So let's do that. So we're going to pick up this attribute called body. So now right now we just come down to the forms.py file. So now I want to style this form, that field. So now we simply say body should be equal to forms the character field. So now we are going to then say widgets should be equal to forms dot text area. Then this, so now we are going to put in some attributes instead of this parenthesis. So we are going to assign a class to this field. And if we check my detail.html, I already added a CSS class. You can see this stuff here. Instance, we are going to assign this class to it. So let's go do that now. So I'm going to come down here and say class I think it's called, what was it called again? It's called forms. Okay, so now let's do that. Forms.py. So we called it forms. Okay. Okay, we also go, for text area they also have these rows attributes for text area fields. So we're going to also pass in rows. So I'm going to set the rows to 3. I think 3 should be fine. And then we're going to also have the placeholder. So I'm going to simply say type message. For the placeholder is going to hold the value of type message. Yeah, so it should be a string rather. Type message. Yeah, okay. Let's see now. So after we've done this now, come down to that detail page now. So now, okay, so where is the place again? So I think it's here. So I'm going to simply put form.body so the style can apply. So let's see how it looks like this time. I hope it looks good. Perfect. You can see everything is fine. The styles as applied is looking beautiful. So now the form is looking nice now. So the next step is that whenever a user type in a message inside this field and click send, we want to have the message on this page. We want to have the message on top, understand? So that's what we want to achieve next. So we'll be doing that right now in the views.py. Okay, go down to the views.py now. So just here now, you can see now we already assigned this form. This form is just whenever there's a get request, we have this blank form. So now we want to check for a post request. So whenever a user puts in a value inside here and click on send, that's a post request. So now before I proceed, I'll go down to my forms.py. So I'm going to go down to my detail.html file. You can see in the form already assigned the form to a post method post. It's going to be a post form. So now because it's a post form, we are going to also have a CSRF token. So let's just add that now so we don't forget in the future. So now let's do that CSRF underscore token. Oh, by every time. Okay. So now go down to the views.py. So I want to check out for a post request instead. So I'm going to simply say if there's a post request, I'm going to simply say if request that's method is equal to post. I mean, if there's a post request, I'm going to do something else. So it should be a string post. Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Should equal to post. So let's see. So if request as method is equal to post, so what we want to do is we want to simply change the value of form. So I'm going to simply say form should be equal to change chat message form. But now we are going to have the request of post inside of it now. Okay, so now we're going to then say if form dot is valid, if the form is valid, we want to save the form. Understand? So once we want to save the form, so once this is valid, we want to save the form and then redirect back to this same page. Understand? So let's do that right now. So now let's do that. So let's say return redirect. So now we're gonna simply say detail. So this detail is coming from from this name parameter. So now detail. So now I'm gonna simply put in the pk should be equal to. The pk is gonna be equal to friend.profile.id. So friend.profile.id. Understand? So now we're gonna simply import redirect at the top. Okay, so now that's it. Now so I want to explain something to you guys right here. If you try now, once you come down here, if you try adding something, if you do this and try sending, there's gonna be an error. So let's see. See, there's an error. Why is there an error? That's because if you see here, we are only providing value. I'm coming. We are only providing value for the body field. If we check this model, so because this model has three values that are required. It has three values that are required. Understand? Three values, which are the body, the MSG sender, and the MSG receiver. So just in the detail form, in the views.py files, I'm going to close some of this stuff. In the views.py file, we are only providing value for the body attributes. You understand? For the body attribute. So we want to also provide value for the MSG sender and the MSG receiver. Because if you don't provide values for them, it's not going to save. You understand? For the scene attributes, it already has a value of false. You understand? So we need to provide values for these two other attributes. So we are going to do that right now. So now, right now, before we save, I want to do something. I'm going to simply say chats. I'm going to call this chat message, chat_message should be equal to form.save. So now I don't want to save the form yet. I'm going to simply say commit should be equal to false. I don't want to save the form yet. What I want to do is that I want to simply assign a value to the MSG sender and MSG receiver. So let's do that now. So if I do that now, so now I'm going to simply declare two more variables. I'm going to simply get the logged in. I want to get the profile that is currently logged in. So I'm going to simply say user should be equal to request dot user dot profile. Understand? So now that's it now. So secondly, I want to also get the receiver of this message. Understand? For example, now if you're trying to send a message right here, if you try to send a message, the person sending the message here is the logged in profile. The person sending the message is a logged in profile. So I want to get the receiver of this message. So to get a receiver now, this is how we are going to do it now. So I'm going to simply create a new variable here. I will simply say profile. As I said earlier, we want to assign a value to MSG sender and MSG receiver. Understand? So we've gotten that of sender, which is the user. So I want to get the receiver. The receiver is going to be one of the friends of the logged in profile. Understand? So which is going to be this guy. Understand? So not just this guy, but for this particular page, it's going to be this guy, Mike Edison. So to get this receiver, so I'm going to create a new variable called profile. I'm going to simply say profile is going to be equal to profile dot object dot get. Right now, so we're going to say profile dot object dot get. I'm going to say ID should be equal to friend dot profile dot ID. Understand? So we've gotten the ID of the profile that's going to receive this message. Understand? So we've gotten the profile that's going to receive the message. So the sender is a logged in profile and the receiver is this profile variable we have here. Understand? So right now, I'll simply come down here and simply say chat message should be chat message dot MSG sender underscore sender should be equal to user, and then we're going to simply say chat message. So we'll say chat message dot MSG receiver is going to be the profile. Understand? That MSG receiver is going to be simply the profile you get. So profile. So that's it now. So now what I want to do now, that's it now. I also love to pass this user and profile to the context because we'll use it in the future. So simply say user, and let's pass in the user and the profile. Okay, so now this is it now. That's fine. Perfect. So now you need to save this. After you've done this, you need to save. So I'm going to say chat message because over here we've not saved yet. So I'm going to come down here and do the final saving. Chat message dot save. Everything should be perfect now. So now I'm going to restart this. Okay, what I want to do next, I want to simply add the home link to this particular stuff. So I'll show you what I want to do right now. I'm going to go down to the views detail page. So at the top now, I'll simply add the A tag. Okay, this is already done already. So I simply add, so this is the URL. So whenever I click on that icon, I want to go back to the home page and so on. So whenever I click on that home icon, I want to go back to the home page and stand to the index page. So refresh the page. So click here. So we are currently we are on the index page. So now I want to send a message to one of my friends. I'm going to simply pick. Let's just say let's pick Pep, or let's pick Mike. So now simply say, how are you, Mike? How are you, Mike? So send. Oh, it says field ID expected a number, but God's friend.profile.id. So having an issue. Okay, it's from here. It's from the views.py file. This is a mistake. It should not be a string. I don't know why I made. I'm sorry for that. It should not be a string. This is perfect. It should not be a string. Understand? Because if it is a string, it's going to return. You can see what it returned on the browser. It returned. It should be a number, not a string. Understand? So I've corrected the error. It should not be a string. Understand? So sorry for that mistake. Okay, trying to reload the page again. So the error has been corrected. So let's try again. So pick Mike Edison. So let's see. So now I'm going to simply say, how are you, Mike? How are you, Mike? So let's send. So send this message. So now it redirects back to the same page. So let's check that. So I'm going to check back. Let's check the admin. So refresh this page now. You can see we have the message Mike. Instead, you can see now we have this. You can see the message. The sender is a current profile that is logged in. You can see the receiver is Mike Edison. You can see it's so clear. The receiver, perfect. Understand? And the default this scene value is set to false. Understand? If you click it, it's going to be set to true. So we're going to leave it false for now. So everything is fine now. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that as we send this message, we want to like see the message on the screen also. Understand? So what we want to do now is simple. So now I'm going to come down here again and create a new. So now I'm going to simply create a new variable called chats. So now I'm going to get all the chats now. So I'm going to say chats should be equal to chat message dot objects dot on. So now in the template, what we're going to do is this. Now we're going to simply list out this. So as the user sends, we want to get the chat up here. Understand? So now we've gotten the chats, all the chats currently. So now we're going to pass these chats to the context now. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to cut this so that this can look more readable. I'm going to simply say chats and then chats. Let's see. So now I'm going to pass this to the context, to the detail.html page. So now just where I think it's here. I think it's here. So this is a chat body. So now I'm going to simply come down here and simply say for chat in chat. So this is how we're going to do it now for. So you see the magic for chat in chats. So let's say M4. So now I'm going to simply do this now. I'll simply say if. So I'm going to simply say. So now I'm going to simply say, I'm going to write some conditions here. So simply say if chats.msg sender, if chat.msg sender is equal to user. If you check closely, you can see we have this user variable up here. You can see we have user, understand, and I passed user to the context. And user is the profile that is currently logged in. So you also have this profile, understand? This profile, it doesn't pass the context, and the profile is the friend of the user that receives the message, understand? So that's it now. So now in the detail page now, simply say if chats.msg sender is equal to user, which is a logged in user, and chats.msg receiver is equal to profile. So if it's so I want to simply do, I'll simply pass in the charts here. If it's this, I'll simply, before, no, sorry, not that yet. So I want to get a class, a CSS class. Stand. So I can't remember what it's called, so I'm going to check what it's called now. Okay, style.css, where are you? Oh, it's a problem. Okay, it adds weird sometimes. Style.css. Okay, there's a class I'm looking for the received, for the sent and received messages. I need to get that style. Oh, where are you? Okay, chatbot sent. I've seen the style now. So now if the chat sender is a current logged in user and the chat receiver is one of the friends of this user, so now we're going to simply do this right here. So we'll simply do, so now I'm going to simply do dot chatbot sent. This is going to be a styled class, the chatbot.sent. So now if it's so, now we want to pass in this chat. Understand? So you understand, because this div is currently styled. You understand, it is styled in such a way that the sent messages will appear on the left with a purple background. You understand? So I want to get now, what I want to get now is the received messages. So now this is the sent message up here. So I'll do an if and else block. So I'll simply do else now, and then end this and simply come down here and say else. I'll simply say else if, sorry, else, it's called if chat dot sender is equal to profile, and chat dot msg receiver is equal to the user. So this is going to simply be the received messages. I'm going to say chat sent, sorry, it's going to be chat box then sent. Understand? So this is going to be chat box, so it's going to be chat box received. The first one is sent, so chat box underscore, sorry, received, not underscore, hyphen received. Okay, so now we're going to simply pass in chats here. Understand? So we are going to end this if, and if. So that's it. So right now we'll check the browser and see how everything goes. So go down to the browser now. Let's refresh this page. Oh, we're having an error. So it could not pass the remainder equal to user. It's gonna be from here. Okay, let's see if chat.msg sender equal. Okay, I think I've seen the problem. The problem is because of this stuff. I need to add some space in between, but that is quite weird. In JavaScript, no matter, you don't need to add. You can write it the way you like and it's gonna work. But in Python, I don't know why it's not working. You need to add some space between the operator and the variables. Understand? So let's add some space between them, and up here it should be sent and not received. Sent. Understand? So perfect. Okay, that's done already. Done. So let's see, hope it works now. To the browser, refresh the page. Perfect. You can see what Clinton sends this to Mike. How are you, Mike? It has been sent. Let's say hope you're fine. Hope you're fine. So send. You can see that over here. So once Mike sends back, you see the message on the left. Understand? Or you see the message on the right. Understand? With a slate blue background. Okay, now it's working. So what I want to do now is that you see, as we are sending this message, the page is refreshing. If I say okay and send, the page reloads. I don't want the page to reload, understand? So let's achieve that right now. Okay, now I want to make sure that whenever we send a message, the page does not reload. So I want to show you something. You can see we have 3 messages here, and all of them are from Clinton to Mike. Understand? Clinton to Mike. Understand? If I come down here and pick a different user, if I pick someone, let's say I pick Pep Guardiola, understand, and send. Let's say hi Pep, and send. You can see it's up there. If I check the database, you can see we have iPep, and I check is from Clinton, so Pep Guardiola, everything is working perfectly. So the next goal now is, what I want to do now is I want to make sure that whenever we send a message, we don't want the page to reload. We don't want the page to reload. We also want to save the message to the database and also display the message up here. Understand? So we want to do 3 things at a time. So we don't want the page to reload. We want to save the message to the database and also display the message on top here. So we're doing that step by step. So now we're going to use JavaScript to achieve this. Understand? So what I want to do is that I want to listen for a submit event on this form. Understand? So we're going to do that right now. So right here I'm going to declare, I'm going to start the JavaScript, and I'm going to write some script tags. So I'm going to say script. So we're going to write our JavaScript code instead of this script tag. So what I'm going to do now is this. I'm going to simply get the form. Understand? You can see the form has an ID called my form. So I'm going to get the form by ID. So I'll simply say let form equal to documents dot get elements by ID. Now say my form. So now I'm going to listen for a submit event on this form. So whenever this form is being submitted, I want to make sure a function is called. Understand? So I'm going to simply say form.add event listener. Form.add event listener. Event listener is going to be a submit event. So this message is going to get, so this function is going to get called whenever we try sending, whenever we try submitting the form. Understand? So I'm going to simply say, I'm going to call this function send message or send chat. Understand? I'm going to call this function send chat. Okay, so that's it there. So now we are going to declare this function. So I'm going to simply say function, and we're going to do send chat. So now this function comes with the default parameter. You can give it whatever name you like. So now I was going to simply say e.prevent default. Is this e.prevent default that prevents the page from reloading? Understand? So what happens is this: whenever the form is being submitted, this function is called. Understand? And inside this function, we are preventing the page from reloading. You understand? So now let's see, refresh this page and try doing that again. Just enter a value there and send. See, the page does not reload. So if I remove this now, come back here again, refresh this page and try it again, you can see the page is reloading. You can see it sends the data. This stuff is saved now. We can see the page is, if I try entering something here, and you can see the page reloads, but I don't want this page to reload. Understand? You get? So now I'm gonna delete the stuff that got added. I'm gonna delete those 2 stuff, they're not needed. So I don't want the page to reload. So now we're going to add this stuff there. So what I want to do now is I want to get the value. I want to get the value from this field and send to the back end. Understand what you want to do? So now I want to get the value of that field. So now we are going to get the value now. So we're going to simply say, so now I'm going to get the value of that form. Understand? So what I'm going to do now, I want to know the ID of this field. So I'm going to check the ID. Let's see what the ID is called. Console. So we inspect rather. So the ID is called ID body. So I have to zoom in. You can see it's called ID body. We'll look closely. It's there. ID body. So I'm going to simply say let's chat message equals to documents dot get element by ID body. Understand? ID underscore body. So this document of its element by ID is simply selecting the field. So I want to get the actual value in the field, the value inside this field. So you simply put dot value outside dot value. So that's done already. So now we've gotten this. Now what I want to do that, I want to send the value we get from here to the backend. So I'm going to console out this stuff so you can see console.log chat message. So let's see. So now enter a value here, just enter any random value. Let's see the console. So if you submit, you can see the value is being printed. That's nice. So everything is working. So I want to save this value to the database because this value is no longer saving. Understand? I want to save it and also display it on the screen without the page reloading. So now we are going to use the fetch API to send this value to the database. So we are doing that right now. So just go down to your browser. So now go to your browser now. We are going to go down to the browser and search for the fetch API. There's a great documentation from MDN, a great documentation of fetch API. So I'm going to just copy some of their codes and we'll implement it here. So I'll simply say fetch API. So let's see what it gives us. So now check out the second link. The second link will be fine. So I'm going to get something from the second link. So it's loading. Taking quite some time. Okay, so now just scroll down. You can read on this to understand the fetch API. It's going to be really helpful for you. Understand? So now I'm just going to copy this to make things faster. So now just copy this section, uploading JSON data. Understand? So I'm going to copy from the bottom. So I'm going to copy this, come down here now. So now we're going to paste this code on the bottom here. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to explain everything to you step by step, so don't get carried away. Understand? So what we want to do now is this now. So we want to send the value from the form inputs to the backend. Understand? So now you can see we have this fetch. You can see there's a URL here. This is going to be the URL of the view we are sending to. So now I'm going to create that URL right now. So now the data you see here, this data you see is the actual data we want to send to the backend. This is what we want to send to the backend. The data we want to send to the backend. Understand? So I'm going to change this now to what we have here. So now we want to send the chat message to the backend. So I'm going to put chat message here. Chat message. And now I'm going to change this to something more relatable. I'm going to simply say MSG for message. Understand? So this is what we are sending to the backend. Understand? So this is this is going to be the URL of the view that will receive this data. So now let's go and create this view right now. So let's create this view. So views.py. Sorry for that. Okay, go down to the views.py. Let's go down there. Let's create this view at the bottom. This view now is going to simply return a JSON response. Understand? Because this view is trying to accept a JSON data, and then it's going to return a JSON response. Understand? So I'm going to simply say return render JSON response. Understand? So return render. Oh, sorry. Return JSON response, not return render JSON response. Return JSON response. So we need to import JSON response on the top. So now simply say from Django.http, import JSON response. Okay, so it's been imported. So right there now we say return JSON response. So now we're going to put in the message we want to return. We're going to simply say it's fine. We're going to simply say it's working. So if we try sending data to this view and it prints out it's working on the console, that means everything is working fine. Understand? So we're going to pass in this second argument called safe should be equal to false. So now we've done this now. So right now I'm going to now create a URL for this view. So I'm going to call this URL, I'm going to simply say path. I'm going to call this sent MSG. Understand? So we're going to simply say views.sent messages, and then we're going to create a name. We're going to simply call this sent underscore msg. Okay, perfect. So now this is where I'm going to send the data to. So I'm going to get this name, the value of this name argument. So bring me down here. So now I'm going to create a new URL here. You can see this is our data we are trying to send. So I'm going to create a URL. I'm going to say let's URL. Forget about this const. This const is just a way of declaring a variable in JavaScript. This const you can use let, but you can use the let, you can use the val, you can use the const, you understand? But forget about this const. There's nothing special like that. So we're going to say let URL should be let URL equal to. So we're going to set this. I think it should be like this. So it should be URL, and I think it's called sent msg. You understand? Sent msg, you get, and this is going to also have this primary key we declared up here. Where's the place again? I think, yeah. Oh, I'm looking for this stuff. Okay, I think it's going to be on the, it's going to have this primary key friend.profile.id, understand? It's going to have that, so I need to also put that over there. Okay, in the URLs, I need to also put in this strpk, so I'm going to just simply copy that. You need to have this also attached because we're trying to get this for a specific friend of the logged in user. Understand? We're trying to send this message to a specific friend, not to all the friends. Understand? So I'm going to put in the PK there. So now go down to the detail.html. So now in that URL I declared up here, so I'm going to also put in the friend.profile.id, send.friend.profile.id now. So now this is going to be our URL. So now I'm going to simply remove this one that is there, that is here, and then say URL. Perfect. So now that I've done this, now what we're trying to do is that we're trying to make a post request by sending data to the backend, to the database. We are doing a post request, it has been there, and we are trying to send JSON data. Understand? So JSON data, which is what we have here, it says content type application /JSON /JSON. Understand? So now down here, this is the body. This is the body. Understand? This body is what is holding the message we want to send to the backend. Understand? So here we are trying to convert the body to a JSON data. Understand? We're trying to convert it because here it's looking like an actual plain text, but we're trying to convert it. But say we are converting the body to, we are converting the data we are sending to a JSON format. Understand? So what we are doing here in the body. Understand? So you can see it says JSON.stringify data. The data holds the body. You understand? So after we've done that, now after everything has been done, we are going to get a response, a JSON response. You understand? So this is going to be the JSON response. After that, we are going to get the actual data, and this data you're seeing here is going to be what is here, what we place here. You understand? So now that's everything. I think everything should work. Okay, let's see if everything works. So now come out to the browser and let's see. So now refresh the page now. Let's open the console. So now if we see it's working, that means everything is fine. Understand? So let's see, refresh this page and click submit. Oh, you can see we have an error, it's not going yet. So let's see what the problem is. Okay, it says CSRF token is missing. Perfect. It says CSRF token is missing. I was expecting this error. That's because right here we are trying to make a post request. I know in Django, whenever you are making a post request, we always add a CSRF token to the form. Understand? But see, we are doing it differently. We are using JavaScript to send data to make a post request in Django. So we need to find the way to add this CSRF token. So we are going to do it right here now. So we are going to go down to the browser. We are going to search for this thing now. I'll simply say Django ajax CSRF token, Django ajax. Ajax is also JavaScript, understand? Ajax is also JavaScript, understand? So Django ajax CSRF token. So just click on the first link. Click the first link. So we should open the stuff for us. Okay, just scroll down. Okay, you can see this stuff. You need to copy the whole of this. Just copy this to this point. Copy. Just copy. Understand? Copy this stuff. Come down here and let's see. At the top of this, just on top of your code, at the top of everything, your JavaScript code, just paste it up. Paste it there. Understand? So just paste it at the top. Understand? So after you've done that, you need to copy one more thing. So just scroll down a bit. You can see we have this stuff here called headers. Understand? Headers. And if you check our code, we also have this headers at this point. Understand? You get. So now just come down here. You're going to copy what is inside. Just copy this, copy, and come down here again, and simply you're going to paste it inside our own headers. Just after the content type, you paste this. Perfect. Everything should work now. So now we've simply passed in a CSRF token indirectly using Ajax. Understand? So come down to the browser now. Everything should save now. So refresh the page now. So if everything works, we are going to see this message. I'm going to show you the message. It's working. You understand? So because if you watch closely, we are sending this body here. We are sending this data to this view. You understand? So that's it there. So now go on the browser now, refresh, and try submitting again. Oh, another error. Okay, the error we are having is that we forgot to add a PK. We need to also add this PK. Whenever you add a PK to a URL, understand this PK is in the URL for this view function. So you also need to add this PK to the view. I forgot. So add this PK to your view. Sorry for that, my bad. Refresh this page. Ouch, why? So let's try again now. So try sending. You can see it says it's working. Success, it's working. Everything is fine. Okay, so everything is perfectly fine now. Everything is fine. So we are able to send the data to this view in instance. We're able to get the data here now. So for us to get that data right here now, so we're going to simply say data should be equal to. So we're going to say JSON.load. So requests dot JSON.load request.body. The body is coming from right here, body. You understand? Okay. So now we need to import JSON at the top. So let's import JSON. So I'm going to say import JSON. Okay, perfect. So now after we've done all this, so right now we've gotten the data from the front end, from the form. We've gotten the data over here, you can see. So right now I want to get the virtual value we have here in the back end there. So now I'm going to simply say let's call it new charts. Let's just say new charts should be equal to data square brackets. So we want to access this key, called, where's the key again? This key called MSG. Understand? So because this MSG is what is holding the actual value of the form field. So now we're going to simply say data square brackets MSG. Yes. So that's it now. So we can print this out and see what it actually is. So I'm gonna simply say print. Print new charts. Let's see new underscore charts. So now let's see. Okay. So now refresh this page. So now I'm gonna simply say how are you. You will see this printed on the terminal. So send. Perfect. So we're going to see this printed right now. You can see we say how are you there. So what I want to do now is I want to save this to the database, understand, as a chat message. Understand? I want to save this as part of these guys here. Understand? So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to simply say, I'm going to simply create a new variable called new chat message. Let's say new chats, or let's say new chats underscore message should be equal to chat message dot objects dot create. So I'm going to simply say body should be equal to new chats, understand. You can see what we are doing. So we are getting this value from the front end and saving on the back end without the page reloading. So I'm saying body should be equal to new chats, and we want to get also the MSG sender. If we check these models, we want to get the MSG sender and the receiver. So now we need to do that over here too. So we are going to get the logged in user. So logged in user is actually the sender. So we're going to say request dot user dot profile. So I want to also get the guy that is receiving this message. Understand? So I'm going to do that also. Okay, so right here now, so I want to get the receiver of this message. So I'm going to simply say friend should be equal to friend dot objects dot get profile underscore ID should be equal to PK. Understand? So I want to get the actual user now that we're going to receive this message. I'm going to say profile should be equal to profile dot objects dot get ID equal to friend.profile.id, friend.profile.id. So this is going to be the actual user that's going to receive the message. Understand? So that's it there. So now I'm going to simply say the MSG sender should be equal to user, and the MSG receiver. Can I cut this? I just hope I can break this down. Oh, it's going to throw an error. So I'm going to say the MSG receiver is going to be equal to profile. Hope you're understanding this. Just go through the code. I'm going to drop the source code. Go through it at your pace and you'll get everything. So now this is what we are trying to do now. So we're also going to set scene equal to false. Understand? So this is all we need to do right here, and we need to, this is what we need to do right here. You get, okay, everything is fine, and we need to also pass this new chats, or we need to pass in this new chat message. We just created a new chat message, so we need to pass in the new chat message over here. I'm going to say new chat message dot body. We just need the body. You understand? The body, the value of the body attributes. You understand? We just need the body attribute. So this stuff we passed in here is going to be sent back to the front end. It's going to be sent back to the front end. Understand? And once it's sent to the front end, you can simply display it on the screen. Understand? So let's see if everything is working. So now whatever we enter here will be printed in the browser's console. So now let's see. Okay, just send. We see how are you, success, how are you, success. This is a success message saying how are you, and we check the console. You can also see how are you there. So if you enter a different value, you can say how are you Pep. So send. You can see how are you Pep there. We can also see how are you Pep also. And if you check the database, it's also saving. It's also saving in the database. It's taking quite. You can see we have how are you and how are you Pep. If we check the sender and the receiver, the sender is Clint, the receiver is Pep. Everything is fine now, and this data has been sent back to the front end just at this point here. Understand? So if we go down to the front end again, we can access the data here. This dot then this data, you can see the data up here. This is the value. You can see what we have here. The value we have here is what we have here. Is what is in this data. You understand? You get, so everything is fine, working fine now. Okay, so now what we want to do now is this. Now, so we want to display this data on the screen. Understand? So right now I'm going to simply, now I'm going to create a div element. So I'm going to simply say let message, let chat message box, let's say let chat message box equal to document dot create element. So I'm going to create a div element. So I'm going to add a style to this div I just created. I'm going to simply say chat message box dot class list dot add. So I want to add a class to this box. I'm going to add the chat box sent class, the chat box sent class. I want to add the same class I did for this stuff. I want to add the same class to this stuff to it. Understand? So the chatbot send class. Okay, now so what I want to do now is this. I want to make sure that the content of this chat box is this data we are getting from the backend. Is we want to make sure the content of the chat box is the data we are getting from the backend. So we're going to simply say chat message box dot inner text should be equal to data. Understand? This data you see here is the value we get from here. Understand? Okay. So now that we've done this, now I want to make sure this is being appended to the parent. There's a container here that is holding this chat message. So I want to make sure that this thing is being appended to the container. So I'm going to show you the container right here. So if you scroll to the top here, you see we have a chat body, because this chat body is always this chat body that is holding the whole chat. So I'm going to get this chat body by its ID. So now at the bottom, now I'm going to simply say let's chat underscore body equal to document dot get elements by ID chat body. So I'm going to simply append this chat message box to it. I'll simply say chat message box. Sorry, I'll simply say chat body dot append, rather chat body dot append chat message box. Understand? Chat message box. So this is everything now. So what we did now is that I'm gonna do a brief recap right now. So from the top here, we listen for a submit event on the form. So whenever the form is being submitted, we make sure that this function is being invoked, this function is being called. So once this function is being called, we prevented the page from reloading. Then we got the value of the form field. So then we have to print that out on the console. So then we have to pass the value of the form field into this object, which is data. So we say this is the key, this is the value, which is the actual value we want to send to the database, to the backend. So now what I'm trying to do next, I want to send this value it goes from the form field to the back end, to a view, to one of the views we created. So here I made a URL for the views, understand? So then I put that URL here. So that means we are sending this data to this URL, to a view. So we are sending it to a view through this URL, understand? So it's a post request, so it is a JSON data we are sending, and these are CSRF token, and just here you have to convert the data to JSON, understand? So once everything has been done, we want to get back the data. Once everything has been sent, getting back the data, first of all, the data will be converted to JSON, then we'll now get the actual data in the second dot then. So right here now, I simply have to just create a chat box. I simply have to just get the chat container, then I have to create a div, and then I have to add a style to the div, then I have to set the content of this div to the data we received, and then I have to append everything to the chat container. I really hope you understood this. Just go through it at your free time. You're going to understand this step by step. So let's see if everything is working fine. Okay, so now I reloaded the page, so I want to send something new. I'll simply say, so I'm going, okay, let's just say, Pep, can we meet today? Pep, can we meet today? So send, let's send. Boom, you can see it's up there without the page reloading. Instead, so I'm gonna simply delete all the chat messages again so you can see how things are going. Okay, so refresh this page. So I'll simply, so what I want to do now is once we've done this, I want to make sure this is set back to empty. I want to make sure this is blank. The field is blank. So this is the field actually. I think, where's the field again? I think this is it. So I'm going to simply copy this. I'm going to simply get that field and set the value to an empty string. So now I'm going to simply come down here and just say should be equal to empty string, understand? So now let's send a new message right now. I'll simply say hi Pep. So send. You can see we have Pep up there. You can see it's there. It has been saved. This Pep is in the database already. Hi Pep, how are you today? The page does not reload. It is being displayed on the screen and it is saved in the database 3-in-1 with that single function. So send, perfect. You can see, check the database, refresh, perfect. Okay, we've come to the end of this part. This is end of part 2. Thank you for watching this video. So do it to subscribe to my channel for more interesting, for more exciting Django tutorials. So do it to subscribe. So support your boy down there on Patreon, and if you need the web hosting for your business, I recommend Bluehost because they're super reliable and they have great offers, great features for you. So check them out, the link below in the description. So thank you for watching. Watch us for part 3 of this series.